This week's quick reminder is found in the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verses 1 to 9. I'll start by reading the first 4 verses. Now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. It came about as they journeyed east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city, and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name. Otherwise, we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." In 1976, there were 3 men who sat down at a table to start a new company that would be known as Apple. These men were Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and a third man named Ron Wayne. Now, Ron was the older of the 3, and he was the one who helped draft the partnership agreement, and he even designed the Apple logo. Now, he owned 10% of the company. And about 12 days after they had come to this agreement, he started to have cold feet. He was worried about it not working out. So he decided he would sell his shares, and he did so for only $800. Today, that 10% of the Apple company would be worth tens of billions of dollars. He had it. It was his. And he settled for less. That word settled that we find in verse 2 is an easy word to gloss over until we see it in the light of chapter 9, verses 1 and 7, and chapter 1, verse 28. God had commanded men to replenish the earth. In chapter 9 and verse 1, we read, "And God blessed Noah and his sons, and he said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth.'" And then in verse 7 of chapter 9, "And as for you, be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly and multiply in it." In other words, he's saying to them, live out your created purpose. Genesis 1:28 says, "God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it.'" So in living out the image of God, they are to fill the earth. But these people decided that they would settle down in the plain of Shinar, where Babylon was located, according to chapter 10. So they settled for less than what God had for them. In John 10:10, Jesus says that he came that we might have abundant life. Why do we so often settle for less than what God has for us? The word settle here literally means dwelt, which is interesting because in the New Testament, the word abide means dwell. In John 15:5, we read, "I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides, he who dwells in me, and I in him, he bears much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing." Why does man settle for less than what God has for him? Our passage gives us insight into the answer to this question, and I believe that it's because we want our own way. In verse 4, we read, "Let us make for ourselves a name." And again, in the same verse, "for ourselves" is repeated. 1 Corinthians 3:19 says this, "For the wisdom of this world is foolishness before God. For it is written, 'He is the one who catches the wise in their craftiness.'" Are we living and settling for our craftiness and not for all that God has for us? Well, God responds to these people in verses 7 to 9 of our text. And it goes on and reads like this, beginning in verse 7. "Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth. The word confusion in verse 7 is Babel in the original language. Well, Babel, verse 9, means confusion. So this is the result of them going their own way, doing something for themselves. In 2 Timothy 2, verse 13, we read, "If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself." Despite the people's unfaithfulness to God here, he is showing his faithfulness in what he did to them. He is doing what is necessary in order for them to live out and know the fulfillment of their created purpose in living out the image of God to multiply the earth. Someone once said that true children of God cannot become something other than children. Even when disobedient and weak, Christ's faithfulness to Christians is not contingent on their faithfulness to him. Before 1954, it was a common belief that running a 4-minute mile was impossible. But Roger Bannister refused to settle for anything less than a time under 4 minutes. And on May 6, 1954, he ran the mile in 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds. It was only within a year that dozens of runners would also do the same. Many Christians settle for less than all that God has for us. We will not accept that there is more for us than what we can comprehend or accomplish ourselves. In other words, this is all I can do. Therefore, it's useless for me to expect more. We too often settle for a meager, just getting by existence, living in what I can accomplish myself, what I can comprehend, and we miss out on abiding or dwelling in Christ and knowing his abundant life. So often we settle for less, but the Lord is so faithful to say, I want you to have it all. Colossians 2:8 says, "See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the tradition of men, according to the elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ." In John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Have you settled for less than all that God has for you in Christ? My name is Kelly Doherty, and I'm the host of the His Hill podcast. Now, this has been one of our quick reminders, which we drop every Wednesday morning. If you're interested in the longer episodes, a new one can be found every Thursday morning. I can be contacted by email, and that address is Kelly, Kelly, at hishill.org. Feel free to write. I'd love to hear from you. And thanks for listening. Remember, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus.